Can the Huskers smother a great Hawkeye defense? Hi, I'm Aaron Muller, and this is episode 22 of the Cobsmacked Podcast. This is a Nebraska Football podcast where we cover the Husker season and team news as it progresses throughout the year. Every video episode is uploaded to YouTube, and the audio versions can be found on Apple, Google, and Spotify. If you enjoy the content, please consider leaving a like and following, sharing it to your friends and family. It helps me spread the podcast and reach more ears. Getting into this week's preview, it's the last game against the number 17 Iowa Hawkeyes. It's our annual Black Friday game against them. Kickoff is at 12:30 on Big Ten Network. Weather-wise, it's supposed to be mid-50s in Lincoln, but the wind could be a factor. It's supposed to be 10 to 20 miles per hour. It could gust a little higher than that. So the wind could play a factor in the kicking game and passing game as well. Looking at Iowa, though, they are in the Big Ten West. They are 9-2 on the season with 6-2 in conference. Their head coach, Kirk Ferentz, has been there for 172 years. He's actually been there for 23, but he has a 177 to 108 record. He is actually the longest tenured head coach in college football currently. He's been there a long time, yes, but I think mediocrity is the standard for him and his teams. They are consistently good, but that's about it. They're not consistently great. You would expect to see that with somebody who's been there that long. In his time there, he has only had 2 conference wins in the 23 years, and the last one was in 2004. They did win the West in 2015, but they weren't able to win the Big Ten as a whole. They are 9-8 in bowl games as well, so they're a little over 50% on bowl game wins. And that's not to knock. I mean, as a Husker fan currently with the streak that we've been on about not even reaching a bowl game, we can't talk down to him, but this is a game where Hawkeye fans and Husker fans just talk crap the whole year, all year, every year. And I lived in Iowa for 5 years, and as a Husker fan, that's not a great environment to grow up in. It was tragic. But it's just, I mean, you talk crap, but this isn't crap talk. This is, we have a ceiling that we've reached in the 90s and before that in the 70s. And Iowa's never reached that ceiling. They've never been up to that level. And I feel like that's where a lot of animosity comes from the Hawkeye fans, is that they think we're still holding on to the 90s, but I mean, we can look back at our trophies. Can they do that? Didn't think so. Anyways, my sister's a Hawkeye fan, so I'm going to have to throw in some extra jabs here. They do have Nebraska's number, as I mentioned, though. They've won 6 in a row. They are 7-3 against Nebraska since we joined the Big Ten, and all 3 of those wins came during the Pelini era. We have not won a game since Bo Pelini was fired. Is that a curse? Who knows? Looking at their offense, though, they run a pro-style offense under Brian Ferentz, and they have struggled since then. I think this is maybe his 3rd year as their offensive coordinator, but they are 124th in the country in total offense. They're averaging 25.5 points per game, which isn't terrible. But going against the Blackshirts, 22 points per game, that's pretty similar. So they're putting up points. It's just the yardage. They're not able to get down the field. So if their defense is not able to give them good field position, if their special teams is not able to give them good field position, they struggle to get down the field and score points. They do like to really try to establish a run game. That's behind junior running back Tyler Goodson. He has 945 yards on the season, 4.4 yards per carry, and 6 touchdowns. That's behind what should be a great offensive line with their junior center, Tyler Linderbaum. He is going to be an NFL prospect. He's very highly ranked in NFL scouting reports and things like that. It's just that everybody around him on the line seems to be struggling to keep up with his athleticism and his ability. They struggled to provide running lanes for the running backs, and they've struggled to provide protection to the quarterbacks. That hasn't given Goodson consistent blocking that he needs. He is a cutback runner. They like to stretch it out to the sides and then cut back at some point, and they're just not able to give him any lanes to run through. Looking at their quarterback, they have sophomore quarterback Alex Padilla. He is 2-0 as a starter. He did take over the role from junior Spencer Petras against Minnesota and Northwestern. He's more mobile, but he struggles as a passer. He only has 47% accuracy on the season. That's 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. He has great targets in junior tight end Sam Laporta, who leads the team in receptions and yards, and freshman wide receiver Keegan Johnson. He is the son of Husker great Cluster Johnson, and he is 16 receptions on the year for 236 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Husker fans have a love-hate relationship with this because Iowa always has kids from Nebraska that seem to do well in Iowa, and we would love to have Keegan Johnson on the team. He's from Bellevue West. We would have liked to keep him in state, but obviously he went there, but he's succeeding. So you kind of have you wish he was here, but you're still happy to see him succeed. But a lot of the offensive issues stem from the offensive line, similar to the Husker woes that we've been dealing with. The offensive line has allowed almost as many sacks as Nebraska has this year, which is unbelievable. When you look at Iowa, traditionally, their offensive line is stout. It's a Wisconsin, it's a Minnesota. Their offensive line is elite, and they just haven't been able to get up to that level. So that tends to hurt quarterbacks that can't throw accurately, that don't have time to throw, and that hurts the running backs not be able to hit lanes like they're supposed to. But the team heavily relies on the other two phases of the game, which I mentioned earlier, and Iowa excels in those two areas. Looking at their defense, they run a 4-3. They are 9th in scoring defense allowed. They're allowing 16.9 yards to Nebraska's 28.5 yards on offense, or points per game on offense. Junior linebacker Jack Campbell leads the team with 105 tackles. The linebackers as a whole combined for over 235 tackles. So their linebacking core is everywhere. I feel like I've said that a lot this year, that the linebacking cores in the Big Ten seem to be very, very good this year across the board. Not only that, though, their defensive backs are turnover machines. They lead the country in interceptions at 21, and it's the turnover margin for the Iowa Hawkeyes in the Big Ten. There's nobody even close. I think they're like plus 12 on the turnover margin, and the closest person was like plus 2. So they're way ahead of everybody else as far as turnovers go. 11 different Hawkeyes have had interceptions this year. Junior linebacker Dane Belton leads the NCAA with 5 interceptions. Senior defensive back Riley Moss has 4, and senior defensive back Matt Hoskins has 3. And I believe each one of those guys has had a game where they've gotten 2 interceptions in one game. They keep teams in games, though. So that defense with the turnovers, with the ability to stop the run specifically, they're really good against the rush. They keep the team in games. As I mentioned, their offense is struggling really bad this year. And so if the defense is able to get them the short yardage that they need, if they're able to get the turnovers, if they're able to score themselves, the defense has scored 28 points this season on turnovers directly. And then how many more they've set up for short yardage touchdowns after the turnovers is, I couldn't put that number together, but it's a lot. I think going into the one game, they had something like 47 points off of turnovers, something in there. But that was only through like mid-October. So if they've won the turnover battle, they've won the game. And when they haven't, they've lost. And that's just kind of the recipe for Iowa's success lately is if they're able to get the turnovers that they need, set up the offense for short yards, then the offense is going to be able to punch it in. But if they're set back, they're not going to be able to. But the defense has done a really good job about being consistent there. Flipping over to the special teams, senior kicker Caleb Shudak is 86% on the season in field goals. That includes 3 from 50-plus yards. He has missed 2 from that distance, but 50 yards is a toss-up anyway, but he's hit 3 from that far out. Otherwise, he's almost 100% from anything closer than that. So, as I mentioned, the wind might play a factor into that, but Iowa has put the nail in the coffin by kicking field goals the last few years. So we would like to see that change. Their punter, another Aussie punter, is sophomore Torrey Taylor. He is averaging 45.8 yards per punt, and he has the ability to pin deep. He's very consistently able to punch it down into the 10, into the 20, and give the team another opportunity to force the opposing offenses to make mistakes deep in their own territory. So flipping right into the key. So as many heard, Adrian Martinez is done for the season. He is not going to be playing this game. He had surgery on his shoulder. He didn't seem likely to come back in the second half against Wisconsin, and he toughed it out. And that, you got to give him credit. He's playing through the probably torn labrum, broken jaw, and sprained ankle. He was playing through a ton. He was a Frankenstein. He was stitched together by glue, and he was still going out there and putting everything on the line for the team. There's a lot of people that give him a hard time about his turnovers and things like that, but he put everything, he put his heart into this team and program. But since he is out, you have to look towards freshman quarterback Logan Smothers to get his first career start. He is a 4-star recruit out of Muscle Shoals, Alabama. He is a top 15 dual threat quarterback coming out of high school. His senior season, he threw for 2,000 plus passing yards and ran for 800 more. That's 40 total touchdowns for him in his senior year. Seeing a lot of reports that he isn't a great passer, but with stats like that, we haven't had a great pool sample size to pull from in his collegiate career. He's only had 60 total snaps. He comes in kind of to replace Adrian here and there. We haven't had a ton of games where we've gone up by a lot and allowed our second string to come in and play. So he's only had the 60 total snaps. He's 7 for 11 on passing for 119 yards, and he's had 13 rushing attempts for 69 yards. He has been here since last January, though. He came in January 2020, so he knows the system good. He knows the system well. He should be able to operate it correctly. It's just a matter of confidence and a matter of experience at this point. So it's going to be vital for him to make quick decisions and use his legs when he can. It looks like he ran the option a bit in high school, so he has that to his advantage. But Frost needs to really call plays to his advantage, to his strengths, and give him the opportunity to succeed. Looking at number 2, offensive line needs to be able to support Smothers as much as they possibly can. So offensive line has struggled with Adrian back there. We're only giving up the 2 sacks per game. It was a lot higher than that. The last few games, they've seemed like they've not allowed sacks to happen, but a lot of that comes from Adrian being elusive and being able to escape the pressure. Smothers should be able to do that, but with the lack of experience, you don't know if he's going to be able to snap into that right away. So the offensive line needs to give him time to throw. They need to help establish the run game as well. Hopefully you'll see Jacques Yant come in. He didn't play last week because of a coaching. He had a discipline issue. Hopefully you see him this week, and that will ease the burden on Logan Smothers as well. But to ask him to go out there in his first career start against a top 10 defense is a lot to ask. To ask him to do that behind an offensive line that isn't able to protect him is almost too much to overcome. In a battle over pressure or mistakes, you hope that the offensive line just lets Smothers take the pressure in the face and be elusive and use his legs to escape it. It's better than allowing him to make a big play and then have that be called back for a holding call or for offsides or for a false start. The offensive line is going to be key to Logan Smothers' success, to even give him the opportunity to see if he can be as effective as Adrian was, or more so. Looking at number 3 for the keys, defense needs to be able to force turnovers as well. So we know Iowa is capable of turnovers, but we need to be able to get turnovers as well. That's something we've struggled with this season. But when Iowa has lost a turnover battle, as I mentioned, they've lost the game. So the running backs don't seem to turn over the ball hardly at all. I didn't see any fumbles on the stat line that I could see. But if you shut down the run game and you force the quarterbacks to throw, both Padilla and Petrus are prone to make mistakes behind that offensive line because the offensive line struggles the same as Nebraska's does. Final prediction, though. So the spread has been moving a lot this week. It started out at +4 for Nebraska. So Nebraska was favored by 4. Then the news about Adrian Martinez comes out that he's not playing, and it dropped down to a Iowa favored by 1.5. Now it's back up to Nebraska favored by 1. This is Thursday morning. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. But Nebraska's favored by 1 again. I don't particularly like that. I would like Nebraska to be an underdog just because we play better in those games, it seems. And it's funny, people have been making a big deal about this too, that Iowa is a 9-2 team and we are a 3-8 team, and we're favored by 1. But if that doesn't tell you that Iowa is a mediocre team or a false high ranked team, they were number 2 at one point in the season. If that doesn't tell you that the odds makers think that Nebraska is better than their record shows and Iowa is maybe not as great as their record shows, there's something there. The over and under on the game is 41, so the odds makers think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I tend to agree. I don't know that 41 is going to be accurate. Getting to the score, though, I think Nebraska comes away with this one 28-24. 28's not a ton of points to put up, but it's against Iowa. We've seen that we could move the ball against Wisconsin, and Wisconsin was the best defense in the country, but that was with Adrian Martinez back there with his experience. Logan Smothers, I think 4 touchdowns is not a ton to ask. He has a lot of people around him that he's been playing with, he's had snaps with, and I think he's going to be able to at least put up 4 touchdowns there. Iowa's going to be able to score on Nebraska, just maybe busted plays like we gave up last week against Wisconsin, but I do see them kicking a field goal there too. So 28-24 is the score. Should be the score. I don't think Frost plans to put this game in the hands or feet of his kicking unit. I don't think that he trusts them enough to put a game on the line and give them the chance to go win a game or put up points for them when they need it. I think they're going to take a lot more chances than Iowa is willing to. This is the last game of our season. This is our bowl game, essentially. And Iowa still has their bowl game to play. So I don't think that Iowa tends to play conservatively anyway, but I think Nebraska is going to go for some risky 4th downs that they might be going for 2 when we need it. But I have confidence that Smothers is more than capable of running the offense. It might take him a quarter or 2 to settle in, to kind of get the nerves out But we've seen the offense explode before. We've seen him come in and score off of option plays to Gabe Ervin, I believe. I actually don't remember who that was, but that ended up getting called back. But the play was run very well. We've seen him be able to come into a game and do that. So Iowa has a solid defense, but aside from the Penn State game, they have not faced an offense like Nebraska. They faced Wisconsin and Minnesota, who are running teams, but Nebraska isn't necessarily that. They are kind of a mixed bag. They are able to do different things, not really run the ball because of the offensive line situation, but we're able to run a bunch of different schemes and plays at you. Iowa has played 3 ranked teams all year as well, and Iowa will be the Huskers' 6th ranked team that they've played this year. That includes 5 teams that were ranked in the top 5 at some point. So we have a lot of experience going into hard games and playing them. We've lost, I think, every single one of the ranked teams, and they've won all of their ranked games, but we've gone up against better competition than Iowa, and we've played them up to the wire. So we just need to get something to push over the edge, and who knows, maybe Logan Smothers will come out there and light the world on fire. So this is also the last game for Austin Allen, among other people. Could possibly be Adrian's last season as well. This is his 2nd major shoulder surgery that he's had since he's been at Nebraska, or maybe one was in high school, but either way, he's had 2 major shoulder injuries, among other things. He's, like I mentioned, he's Frankenstein. So I would hate to see him go out the way that this is playing out, but it doesn't sound like it's almost completely going to be up to him, but with a new offensive coordinator come in, I don't know if Adrian's even going to fit that scheme, and if he transfers out, I don't know how many teams are going to be willing to look at injury-prone Adrian Martinez. The leadership will keep fighting for the team, though, that they will keep the team fighting for the coach, and that gives us a great shot to win any game. But that's going to wrap up this week's preview. We will be back here on Sunday for the final recap of the season. Do you think I'm way off base here? Do you think that Iowa's much better than I think they are? Do you think that Nebraska's just as bad as their record shows? Leave a comment below or let me know on Twitter at Cobsmacked Pod. But until next time, go Big Red and happy Thanksgiving.